Welcome back, Tentacle Nation. Today we dive into a story about a former federal prosecutor, Mark Bennett, once celebrated for his pursuit of mortgage fraud, is now accusing others of harassing him. Yes, you heard that right. Bennett claims that reporting on his public record and speaking out about his conduct is somehow unfair. But here's the twist. The people he's accusing of harassment, they include not only this channel, but also those who were on the receiving end of his prosecutions. Joining us tonight is someone who knows this story firsthand, Tony Viola. But let's not forget the broader context here. Mark Bennett is a public figure, a man who once wielded incredible power in the courtroom, prosecuting high-profile cases that were plastered across the headlines. And now, when the spotlight shifts on his own actions, his ethical violations, his disciplinary hearings, and his suspensions, he claims he's being victimized by harassment. Is this case of accountability catching up with someone who once thrived on holding others to account? Or is this an attempt to silence valid criticism? Stick around, Tentacle Nation, because this is a story of power, accountability, and a man who once demanded transparency, now trying to escape it. Tony Viola joins us next, and you won't want to miss what he has to say.
27 investigates. A former assistant U.S. attorney, Mark Bennett, is facing possible disbarment or other sanctions over accusations of sexual harassment of an intern. That intern was once stationed here in Youngstown. The accusations are currently being reviewed by the Board of Professional Conduct.
And I don't want anybody to think that I went through and tried to curtail my search. I literally just put in my web search for Mark Bennett Prosecutor, and this is what popped up. So I don't want anybody to think that I curtailed this, and it ended up actually being a great video. But
Conduct of the Ohio Supreme Court. First News reporter Desiree Gosselin has been digging into this story, and here's what she's uncovered.
On the third floor of the PNC building on East Federal Street is the Youngstown office of the United States Attorney. According to an ethics complaint before the Disciplinary Council, it's where an intern came to escape sexual harassment she experienced in Akron at the hands of a then Assistant United States Attorney. The complaint filed in August outlines that harassment of an unnamed intern. The complaint alleges Mark Bennett asked the then 24-year-old intern for nude photographs, offered to buy her clothing from Victoria's Secret, and touch the intern's breasts with the back of his hand while maintaining eye contact. A reply from Bennett's attorney, filed September 6th, confirms these allegations. In his reply, Bennett says that he, quote, believed that he and the intern were engaging in flirtation that was mutually acceptable, but now understands he was mistaken in that regard and accepts responsibility that his conduct as described was inappropriate and unprofessional, and is remorseful for his conduct as well as any offense or harm. This phrase and other very similar expressions of remorse repeat at least 11 times in the 8-page reply. Bennett's attorney, Richard Koblenz, wrote the reply. He declined to comment on specifics of the case, but did walk me through the disciplinary process. Currently, a 3-person panel has been assigned to evaluate the ethics complaint.
The panel then basically acts as the trial judge of the matter. So it goes before the panel. The panel then makes a report to the full board. If the panel unanimously decides, the three members of the panel, to dismiss the matter, it's over with.
If the complaint is not dismissed, then the panel will make a recommendation of sanctions to the Ohio Supreme Court, which the justices can accept, reject, or amend.
It's a sanction which can go from a public reprimand, which is a written reprimand, to a time suspension, which can be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, or 24 months. That can either be fully or partially stayed, and the court can then put conditions on that.
The most serious sanction is indefinite suspension. An attorney's license to practice law can possibly be reinstated after 2 years if they show the, quote, requisite character and fitness needed to practice law. Reporting in Youngstown, Desiree Gosselin, WKBN 27 First News.
And you can read the entire complaint from the intern and the response from the former federal prosecutor on the WKBN mobile app. Just look for the link inside of this story.
So, and before we go into it with Tony Viola, let me share something that further illustrates Bennett's approach to silencing criticism. We have in our possession a document. I'm trying to figure out So we have in our possession a document where Bennett has written to the Westlake Law Department attempting to file criminal charges over what he calls harassment. Let me repeat that. Criminal charges. This is a move that raises serious questions about his willingness to use legal systems to stifle public accountability. Now let's take a step back and think about what's happening here. Mark Bennett is attempting to blur the lines between legitimate public discourse and criminal conduct. He's accusing individuals and platforms, like Tony Viola, and this channel of harassment simply for discussing his public record and professional conduct. This document is part of a broader narrative of Bennett trying to shield himself from scrutiny by turning to legal maneuvers that are, frankly, troublesome for anyone who believes in any free speech. This raises an important question. If a formal federal prosecutor, someone who had held enormous power over people's lives, is now resorting to claims like this, what does it say about his ability to handle accountability? Public figures don't get to rewrite the rules when they're the ones in the spotlight. And let me be clear, discussing someone's actions that are a matter of public record isn't harassment. This is about transparency, accountability, and ensuring the power is held to the same standard as anyone else. Bennett's attempt to involve the criminal justice system in what is fundamentally a matter of public discourse is something we'll examine more closely. With that context, Tony, let's get into it. You've been on the receiving end of Bennett's legal tactics before, and now he's accusing you of harassment for simply speaking about his conduct. What's your reaction to this latest escalation?
Well, it's absolutely ridiculous. Here's a guy that was fired by the Justice Department, investigated by the Inspector General. They found he committed wide-ranging misconduct over decades. He harassed multiple women. He lied to the investigators about what was on his computer. He's fired, disbarred, or went through disbarment proceedings in the Ohio Supreme Court, refused to accept the sanction. He said he was sorry, but he refused to accept the sanction, made the whole Supreme Court have a hearing with this guy. He ends up getting a 2-year suspension of his law license. And now he doesn't like that people are talking about it. Well, let me tell you something. When Mark Bennett, before he was fired, was a powerful governmental official, he held press conferences, he got awards from the Justice Department. My name was plastered all over press releases with Mark Bennett's name. He was constantly holding court outside of the federal courthouse with reporters smashing all of us in the media, claimed that I stole $46 million. And I was exonerated at a second trial, and we can talk more about my case later, but I guess in terms of this is the height of hypocrisy of a powerful government official who sought the limelight actively and used the media to create a narrative. Then he gets fired, and he doesn't like people talking about this or disseminating information. He doesn't like the freetonyviola.com website. He doesn't like your YouTube channel. It says it's harassment. It is not harassment. And incidentally, it's not like we're the only folks covering this stuff. Reuters, Law 360, Cleveland.com, Fox News, all kinds of websites, all kinds of legal websites have covered his misconduct. The Inspector General found that there was so much public interest in their report that they actually redacted a lot less of it and put it in what's called the FOIA library. And the Chief Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court, Sharon Kennedy, said Bennett is unfit to practice law and that he needs to be suspended from the practice of law to protect the public. So for this guy to be haranguing the Westlake police, oh my God, Tony spoke about this in a podcast, or oh my God, there's flyers or postcards or signs. And incidentally, the other thing is, and I'm hoping you'll make this information available to your audience, Scott. I mean, the thing that's crazy is that he's assuming that any publicity about his disbarment is my fault. It's some nefarious Tony plot. Aha. That Tony is tricking all of these people into covering. I trick Reuters. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So when I read this, and the other thing I wondered was, would somebody in the Westlake Police Department tell this guy to go pound salt? You know, and say, listen, this is not a criminal matter. If you feel that you're being defamed or it's hurting your business, you have a remedy. It's called a civil lawsuit. Go ahead and file a lawsuit against Tony. Say that you're losing clients or whatever, and go to court and try to prove it. I mean, and if he did, what would happen? We would depose the guy. We would say, look, is this Inspector General report number true? I mean, is this you in that report? Is this you? Is this your picture in front of the Ohio Supreme Court? So he knows he can't win a defamation case. So what he's doing is dusting off his old playbook of using the governmental power for his own personal benefit. And so it's ridiculous reading those emails, and he's shocked. Oh my God, somebody found out about this. Dude, it was on TV, it was on the radio, it's online, it's in newspapers. I mean, what are you worried about? How is it my fault?
So the records are somewhat humorous because he has screenshots of our show on Dawn, and I want to bring Dawn back into this discussion, but he's got screenshots of Dawn. He's got a screenshot of you, very poor too. A screenshot of you, and I actually had to look this up. So ORC 2917. How? And I'm not sure if this is Westlake's creation or if this is his creation of attempting to file harassment charges. I actually had to look it up. I mean, it's basically telephonic harassment, and yeah, maybe theoretically some court might be able to take it from a YouTube video or a podcast, but I've never once called upon anybody in the audience, and I say this out front here now, I've never caused anyone from my audience, I've never called out for action for anybody to harass Mark Bennett. I simply am here just reporting what I see, and Tony, you're right, you're getting blamed. I saw it through my eyes. I saw this investigation with Dawn through my own eyes. You helped see, you helped provide some insight to me that I needed. But I mean, it wasn't you that was telling me, hey, Mark Bennett's a bad person. I came up to that conclusion on my own. Mark Bennett is a bad person. He was a prosecutor that deserves to be fired. He deserved to be disbarred. It has nothing to do with you. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to steal your
Well,
thunder.
the thing is, our best proof of Mark Bennett's criminal activity and wrongdoing is Mark Bennett's own words. I mean, I have here, and I emailed it to you. Okay, if you want to publish this for the audience. I have been maintaining for many years that Dawn Pasela was wearing a wire to record my trial strategies. This is completely illegal. The government, just like I can't bug the prosecutor's office. Well, I was charged with stealing $46 million. I told the U.S. attorney to stick it. I never did anything. And I'm not pleading guilty to something I didn't do. And so I told them to go jump in the lake. And they realized their case sucked. So what did they do? Did they dismiss it and just say, sorry, Tony? No. They decided it would be a good idea to have their then 23-year-old office lady, the office manager, wearing a wire, pretending to be a paralegal to record my defense trial preparation. And when I raised this after the second trial, I was in prison. I was trying to get my first conviction vacated. Mark Bennett says no. I mean, he files that it's false, that there was no voice recordings, that this is nonsense. Dawn never had any access to federal evidence. There's no recordings. And so what does the judge do? Believes the government, not an inmate, believes the prosecutor, and denies. I would have been released from jail had Bennett been honest. But this is back in 2016, 2015. Now, earlier this year, when Seeking Justice was going to do an extensive investigative series on what happened to Dawn and her mysterious death, she died as she was supposed to come to my second trial to testify about Mark Bennett's wrongdoing. All of a sudden, he issues a letter saying that he ordered the FBI agent to provide copies of all of these voice recordings that Dawn made to the defense attorneys in my case. Well, I have letters from the defense attorneys. We never got any voice recordings. I mean, the worst lawyer on earth would raise, hey, wait a minute, our trial preparation was being recorded and the paralegal really wasn't the paralegal? So Mark Bennett is caught lying about Dawn. And I know if Ed and Karen Pasella and Dawn's family and friends were on this show, they would say, we want the truth. Mark Bennett knew that Dawn was wearing a wire before my first trial, okay? He should have stopped it. If he would have said, whoa, I didn't order this, but I found out about this, an honorable law enforcement official would say, wait a minute, what is this? I'm going to go and make sure Dawn's okay. Dawn, where are you? Come to my office. What's going on? We're going to put a stop to this. But Mark Bennett's a dirtbag. He wanted to win the case. He didn't care there was criminal activity. Now he wants to say, well, I didn't hire Dawn. I don't know anything about it. But he's caught lying, and he's caught lying in so many other cases. He knew a witness was committing perjury. He continued to use the perjury. He put in writing that if he did not use the perjury, I would not have been convicted. But that's the whole point. The Constitution says that it's a violation of due process of law for the government to knowingly put on perjured testimony. And he lied about computers. He lied about documents. He said I signed some conflict of interest waiver, which I never signed because some of the lawyers in my case were also representing banks and co-defendants and government informants. I never agreed to it. Jay Milano never told me about all this. He signed some document. That's my lawyer. Bennett's been lying. Again, had he been truthful at any of these times, my conviction would have been vacated. I would have been released from jail. There would have been a proper investigation into what happened to Dawn. Or, better yet, if he would have stopped it as soon as he found out that there was this illegal voice recordings, Dawn may be alive today. So the fact that the Pasella family and I and many others want Bennett to tell us what he knows is important. And the other thing is, in my case, we got attorney Kim Corral, who's fighting to vacate my conviction, and Yale Law School is working with Kim. They took part of my case. And Yale Law School, in the case that I'm represented by Yale Law School, the Justice Department blames who? Mark Bennett for false statements in my case. The FBI and the DOJ have both said that they made false statements in my case about evidence, that their prior representation should not be relied upon, and they blame Mark Bennett. I mean, this is all in writing, and Mark Bennett objects to us talking about it. I think the public has a right to know what's actually going on inside the U.S. Attorney's Office.
So I'm flipping through the binder of information, and I don't know how much we or you want to get into it, but we're obviously not the only folks that he's attempting this with. It's pretty much anybody that's talked about him. I was trying to get to the point of some of the other shows.
Like Monday Night Roundtable, which is a local show here on AM radio, and a guy named Steve Krause and George Satari have it, and it's a sort of a freewheeling show. Well, back in June, well, you know, because you joined us, we had what's called Dinner for Dawn, just sort of a retrospective about her life, a celebration of her life, kind of getting everyone together, updating everyone. My friend Rob McCoy was a sponsor of it. We had prizes. We just had a fun evening, had some spaghetti at the VFW out in North Ridgeville.
It was a great time.
And Karen went on the show to promote that we're having Dinner for Dawn and, justicefordawn.com, all that good stuff. And Mark Bennett takes screenshots of it, because we put it on Dawn's Facebook page, and sends it to the Westlake Police. Was he going to prosecute Dawn's parents? And he did the same thing with Rachel Alexander. Rachel Alexander is a pretty noted columnist on townhall.com, and she's the editor of something called The Intellectual Conservative, and she's a TV political analyst. She's been on Montel Williams. I mean, she's pretty famous and pretty respected, too, as someone who, is not really looking for too much smoke blown up their rear end. They're looking for, information to share with the readership, and she's got an editor that reads stuff, and so she's interested in this Mark Bennett shenanigans, and he said, oh my gosh, this lady needs to be prosecuted. So anytime anybody's saying anything, Mark Bennett blames me. It's a nefarious plot that he loses clients, or that his someone that he knows sees this information. It's ridiculous. We want justice for Dawn. We want accountability for the people inside the prosecutor's office that thought they should wire up the 23, 24-year-old young lady, have her pretend to be a paralegal, record defense trial prep. Dawn was handling evidence inside the prosecutor's office. She became aware that there was evidence suppressed, innocent people going to prison. This is not what a young, idealistic criminal justice person signed up for, and she was alarmed. And when she expressed concern, they told her to shut up and go make coffee. And so she ended up coming forward and providing me with evidence. And then she lost her life as a result of this. There's serious issues here. There's hundreds of people that were prosecuted by this task force. And at my second trial, where I was exonerated, the evidence that exonerated me applies to other people too. It's not like a DNA case. I was accused of tricking banks into making no money down loans that they didn't allow. But it turned out they did allow them, and they knew about it, and they signed off on it. So there was no fraud. But those documents don't just exonerate Tony. Tony's such a great guy. Everyone else is guilty. No, it calls into question the whole task force and this affair that the other prosecutor, Dan Caceres, was having with Catherine Clover, who testified in 36 of these cases in the grand jury. So this is some serious wrongdoing, serious abuse of power, and mostly we have a deceased young lady that the family wants answers. I mean, Dawn's folks and family and friends are entitled to know what in the heck is going on. Well, Mark Bennett lies, says there's no tapes. Then he says, oh yeah, well, I told the FBI to give the tapes. So because he's been caught lying so many times, about material issues, we feel an obligation to continue to highlight this wrongdoing. There's a petition on change.org. 7,000 people think Mark Bennett should be prosecuted. Is he going to go call the Westlake police and have them indict all those people for signing a petition on change.org? This is absolutely ridiculous. And really, Westlake should not be entertaining this. The law enforcement is there for public safety, to protect the public, to make sure that our society is functional. If he thinks this is so wrong, he should file a civil suit, which he would lose because everything we're saying is true.
And so this is one of my favorite. He accuses his 7-year-old daughter of being harassed. And again, I'm not about... I am not advocating for any call of action to harass Mark Bennett, but I feel that Mark Bennett should be held accountable for his actions and his decisions, and that's why I wanted to bring this back up. The audacity that this guy thinks that he can come in and stifle someone for exercising their First Amendment rights, calling into question things of his actions. I mean, just look at the minimalistic of Dawn's case. You have 2 prosecutors, one from the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office. You have one from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and both of them, at minimal, both of them are involved in illicit affairs with witnesses and assisting, not disclosing all of evidence to defense witnesses. And that's just at the minimal. And there's a lot more accusations. There's a lot more evidence on your website that's out there. But even just at minimal, I mean, how does it sit well with anyone, Tony, that both of the prosecutors involved with Dawn's case, both of them have this history?
Right, and the public has a right to know what powerful government officials are doing. I mean, if this was happening at my real estate company, that's not cool. If I was harassing people or doing bad things to my colleagues, not acceptable, okay? But when somebody is using the authority of the government, the U.S. attorney, I mean, we go to court. Mark Bennett for the United States of America. I mean, they really wrap themselves in the American flag. I mean, I've been treated like a mass murderer or like a terrorist, okay? For running a real estate business here in Cleveland and trying to create jobs and economic opportunity for my colleagues and friends. And anyway, we built a heck of a company. The government destroyed it. So I don't know if they expect us to go quietly into the night, but I don't want this to happen to anyone else. I want to know what happened to Dawn. Remember, if Dawn didn't help me, I wouldn't be on this podcast. I'd be in a jail cell right now because I would have lost the second trial and been sentenced to another 10 or 20 or 30 years in prison, given these crazy loss amounts. I was accused of all these thievery of tens of millions of dollars. So I feel Dawn was my friend, and she came forward and told me what was going on and apologized for wearing the wire and helped me, and I wouldn't have won. So I feel like she's not here to defend herself. So I feel like I have an obligation to seek justice for Dawn. And really having Mark Bennett in a deposition with an attorney like Kim Corral, that's what should happen. We've asked courts to do it. They haven't done it yet, but we are hopeful. And just to echo what you said, I'm not asking anybody to harass anybody. I don't want anybody harassed. We want to win legally. Just because Mark Bennett broke the law and Dan Caceres broke the law and slept with witnesses, and just because they lied and made all these false statements in court, they also supposedly lost, and Dawn said they intentionally destroyed computers from companies I didn't own. But all that nonsense that went on inside the prosecutor's office is wrong. We're not advocating anything illegal or immoral. We're trying to honor Dawn's memory. So we feel like it's okay to scrap and fight and tell the story and update the website. That's legal. Okay, we don't want anybody to do anything, so nobody should harass Mark Bennett's daughter. I don't know anybody who I don't even know her name. I don't know anything about it. I don't know. It's not a personal issue. It's his abuse of power as a prosecutor to imprison innocent people, and the knuckleheads in the U.S. Attorney's Department that refuse to admit that there's something wrong with these cases. I mean, this is a good old-fashioned government cover-up. It is ridiculous that nobody in that office comes forward and says, look, we got rid of this guy. We're going to look at his cases, too. I mean, remember, he lied to the Inspector General about the contents of his computer. So to steal Kim Corral's great phrase, well, if the government doesn't believe Mark Bennett when Mark Bennett tells them what's on his computer, why should we? We want a forensic analysis of that same computer to see what evidence is on there, what emails are on there. We've got all kinds of... Remember, the best evidence of misconduct is their own words. The government said they lied about evidence. The FBI said that the FBI agent was taking hard copies home and not scanning them in, and that's this guy, Jeff Kassouf. I mean, the affair, Caceres and Clover, that's his own... I won't repeat what it says on a family show, but it's plenty salacious, okay? So it's their own words. You know, Bennett says we needed perjured testimony to win, to convict Tony. Otherwise, we wouldn't have won the case. I mean, he shows you that it's material that we needed. We don't have actual evidence, so we're going to fabricate a case to put some dude in jail. I think the public doesn't want that. I mean, the public doesn't hate the police. It doesn't, hate everybody. But we just want people to use their authority wisely. And when it's not, it should be corrected. And in the case of Dawn, there should be a proper investigation. Some detective who doesn't know anybody, he doesn't know Mark Bennett, doesn't know anybody, just going through hard evidence and taking a look at the crime scene photos and everything that we have, and interviewing people. You know, we have people that say that Dawn was murdered. There's all these people that have said crazy things. They should be interviewed. The Parma police have spent more time telling us they won't do it. They could have just done this already. And so anyway, our crusade, we feel like it's a righteous cause. It's a cause bigger than ourselves. We're advocating for Dawn, and we're not going to stop because Mark Bennett doesn't like it, or one of his clients heard that he was being disbarred. It's ridiculous.
Now, curiously, do you want to get into this email that we were discussing relative to Akron? Because I find it very interesting. I don't know if...
Sure.
All right. So this is an email that you had actually sent. You were attempting to get public records. Is that correct?
Right. So here's what happened. Mark Bennett was fired, and we couldn't figure out why. We'd heard several lawyers had said that he was grave misconduct. So we started doing records requests. We couldn't get his personnel file. Then, all of a sudden, they filed this law license complaint against him. And so it says in there that there was an inspector general report. And I originally only got a summary that said he sexually harassed the intern, committed gross sexual imposition, lied to investigators, harassed 4 other women, 2 decades of misconduct. I guess he harassed somebody when he was at the Ohio Attorney General's office. I mean, this is just what this guy's done for decades. So I was trying to, because we are trying to get the justice for folks. So we're all about hard evidence. You know, I'll quote Dawn. Don't tell me what to think. Just show me the facts. So I like that. So our website is designed for folks like you you want hard evidence. You say Mark Bennett this or that, or you say the FBI said they lied. Where is that? What page is that? I want to read that. So what we've tried to do always is have source documents to support what we're saying. We don't want you to take our word for it. Don't take my word for it. So I don't like when people do that to me, and I don't want to do it to someone else. So when we found out that there was a crime that Mark Bennett committed, we thought, well, wait a minute, there's got to be some prosecutor's office that conducted some type of investigation. The inspector general said there was a criminal referral about Mark Bennett. So I started contacting every prosecutor's office in northern Ohio, Cuyahoga County, Lake County, I mean, you name it, Mahoning, Summit, to try to see, do you have any documents about Mark Bennett? Nobody had any documents about Mark Bennett. But the Inspector General report says that Bennett broke the law and there was a criminal referral to have him considered to be prosecuted. I had assumed that the prosecutor's office would have reached out to the victim in this case to see, do you want to proceed? Give us a statement. Tell us what happened from your perspective. Forget the disbarment, okay? If there's a crime, that may be prosecuted, particularly if the victim wants to move forward, or the victim may have other evidence that was outside of what was in the Bennett firing and disbarment. So anyway, finally, enough people had made records requests about the Inspector General report, which is about 15 pages. It's on our free TonyViola.com website, that it said, we referred this to Akron, the Akron city prosecutor. So apparently where he committed this sexual assault was in Akron. So I'm looking for the records. Where are the records? And I get this ridiculous email back. Oh, well, we got a phone call from the Inspector General about lying, and we didn't move forward with it. So, I mean, this really shows you that these powerful people do whatever the heck they want, and there's never any accountability. I mean, the guy, according to the Inspector General, he lied about the contents of his computer. He solicited sex from his government computer and said he will not hire you or write you recommendations to work unless you have sex with me. I mean, he's basically demanding sex for jobs, and he's physically committed an assault. And there's not even, there's a quote phone call to the Akron prosecutor's office. I mean, at a minimum, somebody should have opened up a folder and reached out to the victim, right? I mean, you tell me.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it should never have been considered to even be reduced or not investigated without at least having some sort of dialogue with the victim in the case. I mean, absolutely.
Right, all right. I mean, exactly. The victim was at least entitled to have somebody in law enforcement reach out and say, we'd like to talk to you, we'd like to understand more of your perspective, and determine. And the other thing is what other evidence may exist. And so the inspector general, they don't prosecute, they investigate and they publish their findings, but they specifically make criminal referrals. They don't do it that often, by the way. So Bennett's conduct was so egregious that he made a criminal referral, and it was just a joke. And the inspector general report is very devastating. I mean, Bennett attacked some server at someone's retirement party or something. I mean, there's some serious stuff in there. Okay, in addition to the lying and the salacious, crazy stuff that he put in writing on his computer, and then you highlighted some of it, offering to buy jewelry, and it was crazy. Anyway, it's ridiculous because if I was in my real estate business and I had done what he did, I would certainly expect to be prosecuted, or at a very minimum, that the local DA would have been in touch with the victim and said, tell us what happened and from your perspective, and do you want to see this case move forward in a criminal sense? And they may have seen if there's other evidence available too. They didn't even do that.
Now, just doing a little bit of research, because I thought he was just disbarred. Did he somehow get his license back, or I'm confused what's going on with him?
From what I understand is he resigned from the federal bar, so I don't believe he can practice in the federal courts. He was given a 2-year suspension. There was a lot of dissension in the Ohio Supreme Court. It's not a unanimous decision. The Ohio Supreme Court Justice Sharon Kennedy wanted him, said that he needs to be disbarred to protect the public. But the majority ruling was that he has a 2-year suspension, that if he does not commit further misconduct, that after the end of the second year, which I think is the end of 2025 or something, so it's a stayed suspension, I think. Although, it's an open question as to whether these emails constitute a violation of the Ohio Rules of Professional Conduct.
Well, that is an excellent question.
He doesn't say he wants to be prosecuted, he wants you prosecuted, we got to prosecute everybody, put everybody in jail. But he doesn't point out with any specificity what we're saying that's wrong. He doesn't say, a certain document is false, or this case number is not me, that's not me in that Inspector General report. He doesn't go through. By the way, he threatened Seeking Justice, and Seeking Justice ladies wrote him a lengthy letter back of all the source information of why they were going to include him in it. By the way, the funniest thing is that in those Westlake, I don't know how many of them you had a chance to actually go through, there's hundreds of pages, he even sends a picture of him at his own press conference to the Westlake police. My God. I mean, let's prosecute Tony because, look, he's disseminating me at my own press conference. I mean, this guy's crazy. So, the abuse of power and the megalomania is unbelievable. So this guy's lived his life in a bubble of sort of courtiers surrounding him or telling him how great he is. I'm sure he's super frustrated. There's an email to this guy, Michael Harvey, who is a Rocky River attorney who Bennett's used to threaten people. Michael Harvey's frustrated that I haven't been indicted yet for can't get me back into court. It's frustrating. They really honestly think that it's a crime if somebody who was using Mark Bennett in some case or some person that lives on a street found out that he was fired and went through this disbarment proceedings. And by the way, Bennett's own stupidity is what dragged that thing out for years. Had he just accepted his punishment and just apologized, it would have been over. That disbarment proceeding, that went on for several years because he refused to accept responsibility, even though he admitted the actions. So the media coverage of those proceedings partially were elongated because he insisted on a public hearing in front of all this Ohio Supreme Court. Not every case gets that. They can be resolved without that type of public hearing. So anyway, the guy is sort of the gift that keeps on giving because he doesn't want the publicity, yet he does all these crazy things to keep the case alive, and then he lies so much that he makes written statements that contradict his earlier written statements. No, there's no voice recordings with Dawn, and then he says, oh, well, as soon as I found out there was all these voice recordings, I told the FBI to give it to the defense lawyers. By the way, that thing, hey, I told the FBI to give it to the lawyers, that is improper. A prosecutor has to turn over the evidence. The FBI is an investigative agency. They don't have responsibility on their own. I mean, they can turn over evidence to defense, don't get me wrong. But ultimately, it's the prosecutor who has the obligation to make sure that any evidence that's relevant to a case is provided. And Federal Criminal Rule 16 says any voice recording with the defendant's voice, even if I'm talking about sports or baseball or whatever, has to get turned over. So Bennett's blaming the FBI. Well, the FBI could turn over documents, but let's say that there was a police department involved too. The FBI is not going to turn over evidence from other law enforcement agencies, and I was prosecuted by a task force. So Mark Bennett, again, doesn't want to accept responsibility for his own misconduct. He's the one who's supposed to turn over. And by the way, all these defense lawyers said, we never got these tapes. It's ridiculous. Of course we would have raised it. If there was tapes with my voice and Dawn's voice and my lawyer's voice at his office about trial preparation, we certainly would have raised it, would have filed a motion to dismiss the case on government interference grounds. It's a famous Supreme Court case called Messiah from 1964. Once you're indicted, the government's not allowed to record your trial preparation or ask about your trial stuff. If they want to talk to you, they can bring you down to the prosecutor's office, you bring your lawyer, and you have a meeting. But they didn't want to do that. So then they sent Dawn to figure out our trial prep, and then they identified our witnesses and found out what our defense was, and then destroyed evidence that we were counting on to support our defense. One quick thing is, I supposedly stole $46 million from these mortgage and title companies, but I didn't own them. I never got a cent. So one of our easy defenses would be to have a forensic accountant get the computers from Transcontinental Lending and Family Title and find out, well, how much money did Tony Viola get, and have somebody write a report or testify at trial. Oh, we lost the computers. We don't have them. So what happened was Dawn wearing a wire, Bennett and Caceres got wind of our defense strategy, our defense trial preparation, and then they took action so I couldn't defend myself. It's ridiculous. And they admitted lying 5 years ago. And why is this case still going on? My conviction, it's ridiculous. And why is there not a full investigation into Dawn? It's aggravating. And these arrogant people go on TV and talk about the rule of law and all this, and yet there's outright criminal activity in the U.S. Attorney's Office that nobody feels like correcting. And then if you noticed, Bennett's copying his buddies in the U.S. Attorney's Office about, oh my gosh, there's all these flyers and people are complaining. You know, it's ridiculous. And so nobody in the U.S. Attorney's Office wrote back to said, listen, man, you're on your own. I mean, it's ridiculous that these prosecutors are all helping each other. And even in Westlake, somebody should have said, stop with this. Go hire a lawyer and file a civil case. We have important duties to protect the public. We don't have time to listen to your whining. And it's ridiculous. His discipline and firing and all this, it's all over the internet. It was covered widely. How is it my fault?
Right, the letter that was written back from the law director from Westlake, and I don't know if that was actually the law director or the prosecutor, I can't remember, but sometimes there's a difference between the two. But they, like you said, instead of taking the opportunity to say, "Hey, you're completely misplaced with these allegations," they just basically state, "Hey, we're not going to prosecute at this time," and they like give him some leeway. Well, you made no attempts to tell them to stop harassing you. That's not the law, and so I'm totally in contradiction with what the law director from Westlake referred to Mark Bennett. That's not the law. Again, he's a public figure. This isn't harassment. I'm not going to his house. I'm not telling anybody to go to his house. That's harassment. Me talking about him in a public forum, about a public figure, that's First Amendment, protected speech.
It's core First Amendment protected speech because it's political speech, because he was a powerful government official, and the Supreme Court has said that political speech is the most protected speech in this country. Okay, and if you make a mistake and you say something that's not true, if it's a political figure, it's too darn bad, and that's part of, because again, in the famous Supreme Court case, it underscores the point that Mark Bennett, and this is the words the court used, thrust himself into the public arena. I didn't tell the guy to hold press conferences or have a job where he'd go on TV all the time. Okay, I didn't tell him to try to get an award from the Inspector General before they investigated him. What a great job he did. The guy couldn't get enough publicity. The guy, his dream was to go on Channel 19 News. I mean, so he sought the publicity out, and he put himself into that position. Some people become public figures or famous not because they want to, like this Mangione guy that shot the healthcare worker. Like, there's reporters sitting outside of his family's house, that mom and dad and all that. Well, they didn't seek that out. Okay, so I understand that journalists want to know what they think. I get it. But they're not public figures. And so there's a difference between somebody who's famous or people have heard of, that it wasn't a decision. But this guy had a power, and they're not government officials either, by the way. So this Bennett is a powerful government official, actively sought the limelight, exercised governmental authority. So the public and your show and others are well within their rights to raise questions about their activities or the current refusal to reopen Dawn's case. It's fair. And the other thing, too, is public pressure and petitioning the government for redress is core to the whole United States. That's like the most American thing you can do. I mean, the American Revolution started off like that. Hey, we don't want all these, Boston Tea Party, all these taxes. So, I mean, like, to try to get public pressure or public awareness or welcome people to our Dawn Facebook group or whatever, that's core to getting in front of powerful folks and saying, hey, we want you to take action. Can you make a correction here? Can you announce that you will reopen Dawn's case or reopen some of these cases that were mishandled, where the evidence was mishandled, or there may be innocent people in prison, for God's sake. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. In fact, that's what citizens are supposed to do. I mean, you read the Federalist Papers or Thomas Jefferson, they talk about active citizens being an active part of, the community and the political process. That's what we're doing.
So, Mark, if Mark Bennett, I'm sure he's going to be watching and listening, and so I want you to take this screenshot, Mark Bennett. I offer you're more than welcome to come on my channel here if you want to have an open, candid conversation about what occurred in the Dawn Pasela, relative to Dawn Pasela. You're more than welcome to come in and talk. You're more than welcome to come in and try to defend your actions. I mean, I think they're deplorable, but you're more than welcome to come in and defend your actions on my channel. It's not a one-way thing. If you have something to talk about, Mark, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is all over the place on this channel, so feel free to contact me. But I did want to talk. Tony, I sent you an email a while ago, and I didn't know if you. I just wanted to bring it up that Morgan from the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department, he actually had investigated Dawn's case, and basically he was the detective that stated, hey, these are the things, 1 through 5, 1 through 12. These are the things that need to be conducted on this investigation. He actually retired, and I've had a couple of people from the Sheriff's Department reach out to me and say that he might be amicable about coming on. I don't. Wow. Do you think that would be a worthwhile thing if I can make that happen?
It would be wonderful, because Detective Morgan. Well, let me say one quick thing. Thank you for inviting Mr. Bennett on the show, because like Rachel Alexander wrote an article about him, and in fairness, she reached out to him and said, would you like to respond? That was more than fair. And what does he do? He sends it to the police. So the fact that you offered him the chance to come on, he's never disputed anything. He wouldn't respond to Seeking Justice. They did the same thing. They said, you're welcome to come on a Seeking Justice episode. So I appreciate you offering that. And in fairness, listen, when they were prosecuting me, I never got asked for anything. They would just put at the last, they would smash me on the front page of the Very Plain Dealer, and then they would put inside, Viola denies the charges at the end. So I never could get on. So he should come on. I appreciate it. Detective Morgan struck us as somebody who was really just looking at hard facts. He recommended that 10 witnesses be interviewed. 10, okay? Including this Marty Maurer, who we got caught lying. He told our investigative team that he was not in the apartment that night. He told a different investigator that he was, and our investigative guy, Bob Frederick, was able, and his colleague, Tom Doyle, they were able to prove that. So we've got one guy that definitely should be interviewed. He's on that list of 10. And there was other things that they talked about, that Detective Morgan talked about, looking into this exceptionally high alcohol content and, interviewing 10 people. I mean, that's what police do. This is not some crazy idea, I mean, to find out what's going on. This John Patrick, who's a partner at Reminger and Dan Caceres' brother, according to people, his kids and others, he's talked about Dawn's murder. So he should be asked, what do you know about it? Why did you say that? What is the story? So there's all these people that should be interviewed. So I think and I give Detective Morgan a lot of credit because you can tell that he's just looking for facts, and Dawn's family and friends deserve answers, okay? She was a brilliant young lady working for the prosecutors. Nothing bad should happen to your daughter if they're working for the prosecutors. So I would, if he would come on, that would be fantastic. It would be just amazing to have him, if he's willing to speak publicly about, his findings and what he thinks. He said the case should be reopened. And if Parma didn't want to do it, they should just ship it out. Just send it somewhere and let's have answers. It's not right. It's like Mark Bennett. I mean, he should be asked questions about this. When did you find out that Dawn was wearing a wire? By the way, we've had a court order for a decade for the government to produce the voice recordings that Dawn made. We still don't have them. I mean, does Bennett know where they are? Are there notes? I mean, this stuff should be produced immediately, and Dawn's family is entitled to answers. Whether there was foul play or not in her actual death, I don't know. But I know one thing. It should be reopened. It should be reinvestigated. And the whole thing of her wearing the wire is dead wrong. It never should have happened. And we don't want that ever to happen again. One of the reasons we're seeking justice for Dawn is she was trying to stop wrongful convictions and drive accountability to powerful folks, and we're sort of trying to honor that by doing the same thing. That's why we're doing all of this. I can't undo what was done to me. If I could go back in time, sure. No 10 years in jail, it'd be great. But I can't. But what can we do is change this so this does not happen again in our country.
And it takes 10 minutes, Tony, and I'm talking to the Parma police chief, if you're watching this, it takes 10 minutes to formulate and draft an email and or letter to Ohio Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation, send it off to them, and I guarantee that they would investigate this.
They want the case. They've told us in writing that they want the case, but that they cannot do it unless the local police department sends it to them. But Dan Snyder at Ohio BCI talked to Ed and Karen Pasella. We have an email in writing that they do. They will. And they have other forensic resources that maybe some of the local police departments don't have, and they specialize in cold cases where a police department, well, as you well know, has many different things going on and many different duties where they are very specialized and focused. They want it, and Parma won't do it. Why? Because the safety director in Parma, Bob Corey, is Bill Mason's buddy from when he was the number 2 guy in the prosecutor's office, who's buddies with Dan Caceres, and Dawn died when Bob Corey and Bill Mason were overseeing the medical examiner's office. So there's some serious conflicts of interest. And that's what they told Ed and Karen. Well, everybody knows everybody, and it's ridiculous. This is their daughter. They have a right to know what happened. But yes, Ohio BCI wants the case.
And they are correct. They are restricted by ORC. They can only come in when invited.
Right.
But hey, Chief, I'll do the template. I'll write it up for you. I'll send it. I'll send it to you for your signature. It takes 10 minutes. That's all. I know you're a busy guy over there in Parma, enforcing all of those laws that Parma enforces. So I'll write the email for you. I mean, I don't know what else I can say. It takes 10 minutes to generate a letter stating, hey, we don't have the resources. We would appreciate your assistance. And that's all it takes. But
we won't bother them anymore. Okay,
yes.
We won't have rallies on the city hall steps, just like Mark Bennett. If Mark Bennett can just give us the truth, and retract his false statements in my case so my conviction is vacated, and give Ed and Karen the satisfaction of everything he knows and pointing to where we can get these tapes or documents or who knew what when and what's going on with Catherine Clover. We just want the truth, okay? We'll shut all the websites down. We're not trying to annoy people. We are fighting for justice. We are saying that what happened to my friend and their daughter is wrong. It's wrong to put that young lady in the middle of a criminal case, and it can't happen. And Bennett has information, and we are within our rights to say he should be deposed by an attorney, or he could have a lawyer help him and give us a statement. We just want the truth, and he should do it so he can move forward with his life and not have all this acrimony. But until that happens, we are not going to just forget about Dawn, okay? Those of us who were lucky enough to know her, she changed our lives, and we owe it to her to try our best to seek justice. I mean, and I have a job. I do other stuff. It's not like I do this the only thing I do all day, but I like to try to spend time when I can to advance our cause and to welcome new folks into our cause. And, we're smarter together. The smartest person is not as smart as a group of people. And you found stuff about that cell phone. You said there was an unread text message. The more eyes on this case, it's benefited us because we have had different folks with different experiences and backgrounds saying, oh, wait a minute, did you check this out? Did you do that? So these are all important, and so we're happy to team up and collaborate with lots of folks. But, just what you said, let Bennett give us the truth and tell us everything he knows. And I think for Dawn, for her family and friends, it would give them some sense of peace of mind. I mean, we can't bring her back to life, sadly, but maybe just answers for the family. That's not too much of an ask.
And I'll make certain to put the website up, but tell everybody the website for the Seeking Justice for Dawn.
Yeah, so justicefordawn.com has links to a lot of the media coverage. There's documents. In fact, Detective Morgan's summaries, we did publish those. They are on there. They're attached to letters to the Parma officials asking them to reopen the case or send it to Ohio BCI. There's a letter to the law director saying, hey, Ohio BCI wants this case. Can you please send it out of your office? So justicefordawn.com has got pictures of Dawn so you can see what she looked like. And so that's this about her case and evidence. And then the freeTonyViola.com is about my case, and there's a lot of supporting documents and evidence. And so some of Kim Corral's brilliant court filings are there, the Yale Law School brief where they blame Bennett, which the government does too. So everybody blames Mark Bennett for lying about evidence. So anyway, you can read all this stuff. You don't have to take my word for it. We created these websites for two reasons. One, so that serious folks like yourself, investigative journalists, people who really want the facts, it's all there so that you can see it. You don't have to take our word for it. But also, some of the information we have, like we've got FBI 302s that were suppressed, and I think it helps other people, not just me. So Dawn wasn't selfish. This is the ultimate selfless act, to come forward, risk her career to help me and help other people that she thought were wrongfully prosecuted. So to honor her memory, one of the things we want to do is assist other people. So if any of the, Bennett prosecuted a lot of people, so is Deanne Caceres. If any of the stuff in our case, or it's stuff from the second trial where I was exonerated, if that's helpful to others, we want to share that. We're happy to do that. So anyway, it's out there. It's not the most exciting website you've ever seen. It's the opposite of anything, like it's not TMZ or whatever. But it's hard-hitting and it's factual, so, and we try to keep it updated. So,
and you have a Facebook page also.
There is a Dawn Facebook group. All that stuff is linked. If you go to justicefordawn.com, you can click on the Facebook group. You can click on the change.org petition. You can check media coverage. The local NPR station, Matt Richmond, did an article about this. I mean, there's interest in what happened to Dawn, partially because it's this mystery that needs to be solved, but partially because it's just shocking that a young lady who worked in the prosecutor's office ends up dead after some botched illegal operation to record trial preparation. I mean, it's just terrible. And her computer was missing from her place. So we know she didn't just kick the bucket, okay? So there's someone was there and something happened. Now, maybe somebody didn't mean to kill her, but something happened in that apartment.
And the cell phones, correct?
Right, 3 cell phones, one with an outbound phone call after rigor mortis supposedly set in. There is so much nonsense. The heat's cranked up, the window was open, the apartment's immaculate. She supposedly died from alcohol consumption. There's no cups out anywhere. There's one bottle of drugstore vodka in the trash. There's soup being cooked on the stove. I mean, the whole thing doesn't make sense. But again, we're on the Mark Bennett story of why is he so afraid? Why is Mark Bennett threatening to prosecute and put people in prison? Because we're talking about this. That's the story here. Why not just give us the truth? Why not just retract your false statements in court? What are you protecting the Justice Department for, Mark? It doesn't make any sense. Just give the family the truth, clear the slate, and that's what we hope will happen. And we hope to win in court. We hope to, one way or the other, he's going to have to answer these questions. At some point, we do believe that there will be a hearing, and these questions will be asked to these powerful individuals. Where are these voice recordings? Why did you forge Dawn's name on the evidence log? There's lots of things to answer for here.
Has anybody else reached out to you, curiously, Tony, relative to being falsely prosecuted by Mark Bennett.
Yes, and that's one of the things I think that they fear. When one person is out there saying, there's misconduct and all that, oh, he's crazy. Dan Caceres is particularly good at this. Oh, that person is a criminal. They label you felon, criminal, jail, and then, you want to try to, I don't want to listen to that guy. So I think the nightmare of these prosecutors is when people are teaming up. And, of course, the ultimate nightmare is Kim Corral, who's a brilliant lawyer and Yale Law School. I mean, to have those folks, and we got a good investigator, Bob Frederick, who I think you've spoken with at some point. So the point is we have a lot of advocates that are not screwing around, and that it's not like they're looking for something to do. It's not like Kim doesn't have anything to do. She's sitting in her office just doing Sudoku puzzles all day. I mean, she's got a full plate and then some, and yet she's advocated for us. So we've got really powerful people. But the answer is that's their fear, that people compare notes. So, in my case, they supposedly lost all the computers that proved I didn't get any money. But that's what they do in other cases. We've got other cases. Oh, we lost it. They come to court. Caceres sort of comes with his, head down, sheepishly, Your Honor, I'm really sorry, but we've lost all the computers. And so when we all start comparing notes, you're showing pattern and practice of misconduct. This is not a mistake or a temporary lapse in judgment. And so we've got Bennett lying in a myriad of cases. And so it supports my claim to have my case, the initial conviction vacated, because we could say, look, this isn't some goof or some little error. This is what he did. This was another day at the office for this dude. And they don't like it. They don't like people organizing, coming together and saying, this is not cool. This is not cool, and we want justice and accountability. They're not used to it. Prosecutors are not used to having to answer. The old saying is, if you're a prosecutor, you never have to apologize or whatever. And so they don't like it, and they don't want to. But guess what? In this case, because of Dawn, I don't think there's going to be rioting in the streets because I'm not a realtor, or whether or not J.P. Morgan Chase followed their underwriting guidelines in some loans, 15 years ago. I don't really think people are going to drop everything. But Dawn's death changes the complexion of this case, because what happened to her is outrageous, and it's a young lady who's dead. And so it demands justice, and I just don't think that the people who are advocating for Dawn are going to get tired or get worn out. I don't think so. I'm not, and I think the crew that we have that's supporting us won't. I know Kim Corral does not give up. Once she grabs a hold of, some guy told me it's like a dog with a T-bone steak. That dog is not giving up that steak real easily. Once Kim grabs a hold of a case and feels passionately about it and looks into it and feels that there's something wrong, she doesn't just say, well, you know what, I'm going to move on. So we're not moving on, so hopefully there's justice.
Is there, and just lastly, I just want to make certain, is there anything, and I understand there may be some things that you are not able to talk about, but any new development whatsoever on Dawn's case?
Well, a couple of new developments would be, one, we are waiting for the ruling in the Yale Law School case. We had oral arguments almost 18 months ago. That case is about evidence and the voice recordings that Dawn made and any documents with her name on it. And a guy named Daniel Winnick from the Justice Department told the United States Court of Appeals that they haven't started looking for this stuff with Dawn's voice on it. So I think at some point, which is ridiculous, she's deceased, she has no privacy rights, and I want the tapes, and I'm the other person on the tapes. So we expected, and hopefully it'll come, a ruling that could reopen the whole situation with these voice recordings. We don't have the ruling yet. And the other thing we did is we had an expert take a look, a pathologist take a look at what happened to Dawn and the way the medical examiner handled it, and he feels the case should be reopened as well, and found a number of incorrect statements in the ME's report. So just for one example, the medical examiner said the only way Dawn could have had blood alcohol content that high was orally consuming alcohol. And that's just not true. We're not saying that someone waterboarded her or that it was, inserted, vaginally or anally or through some type of IV. We're not saying that, but it's possible. And so when the medical examiner said it's not possible, there's only one possibility, she just drank and then kicked the bucket, that's factually wrong. So there's things like that in the reports. It looks like, and it's very sad because Dawn was my friend and she was really spectacular, but it's very sad to see how poorly she was treated, not only in life but in death. You can just tell that they didn't take the time. There's not a lot of autopsy photos, for instance. So, like, let's say there was vein marks on her arms, or no vein mark. You could eliminate that or needle marks, I'm sorry. You could see if there was pictures of it. They didn't do any of that. So it's really sad to see the way Dawn was treated. It's very heartbreaking. In life, she was brutalized by Bennett and Caceres, and then in death, like it's no big deal. But it is. She's our friend, and she's someone's daughter and someone's sister, and it's really brutal to think about it. But anyway, two updates are: we got an expert, and we've got a Yale ruling coming soon. Hopefully, it's good.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Tentacles of Cuyahoga County. If you've enjoyed this content or found it informative, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing. It really helps spread awareness about these critical issues. A big thank you to Tony. Your fight for Dawn and her family are an inspiration to a lot of folks. For those who haven't seen it yet, I've created a playlist for the series on the tragic case of Dawn Pasela's death. It was one of my first series, so I'll admit my editing wasn't polished back then, but it's an important story that deserves to be told. I encourage you to check it out and form your own thoughts. As always, I appreciate you being part of Tentacle Nation. Stay informed, stay vigilant. I'll catch you in the next episode. Make sure you check out that playlist on Dawn. Thank you.